Transition, the process of change from one condition to another.
We are now at a new crossroad where change is evident once again.
What does not serve us must transform us anew.
Returning to our original state of oneness and true nature of that which created who we truly are.
Confusion was the way of the past. Enlightenment is the way of the now and future, shedding away the layers of deceit.
We now bring you the transformation of the two who started as one. Our fearless planet never stands still.
Earth has been in a process of transition, and we are not exempt from this remarkable ongoing reality. Well, good evening and welcome to Real Talk with the Cummings. This is Transition Radio Show. It's been on since, 2006. It's had its ups and downs and all arounds and all sorts of craziness. But today we have a wonderful guest who has been on the show before, but not being her true self. She's part of the series that we're doing, Living Their Best Life. We plan to interview different people from the LGBTQ community who are happy in their transition, who are happy being gay, and just showing the world that all this commotion that's going on with people thinking that there's some sort of conspiracy of us trans people taking over the world and your planet.
With a leader.
Some sort of leader that it's totally crazy. But with further ado, we're going to go ahead and read the bio of our guest today. Willow Starling, she has been on a challenging, beautiful life journey since May 15, 1988. She never quite understood what trans was until around the age of 20, mainly due to growing up in a Pennsylvania county where trans women were recognized as quote-unquote delusional men and nothing more.
She was a highly intuitive child whose intuition was disrupted and ultimately shut off by controlling parental figures and a community that lacked understanding for her uniqueness. As she went through male puberty, Willow's attraction to men confused and frightened her, as she was led to believe by the people around her that she would grow to become the husband and father of a nuclear family. But Ms. Starling clearly wasn't headed in that direction.
Starling came out as a cis gay man and had lived that way for nearly 10 years before making the difficult decision to come out as trans on December 23rd, 2017. And there's a story behind that, which we'll get into with Ms. Starling in a little bit.
Every bit of harassment, discrimination, and sexual assault experienced by Ms. Starling helped to reawaken her to her spiritual path, which she began taking an active approach on in late July of 2021.
Willow experiences are currently being documented in fictitious literature, such as in her debut novel, Death, Judgment, and the Tower, as well as her upcoming sophomore effort, Tristana, both books containing transgender protagonists. My Cuban is coming in loud and clear. That's all right. But hey, how's it going, Willow?
Oh, it's going fantastic. I'm reporting from the lovely, rainy Grand Rapids, Michigan at the moment. How are y'all doing?
We're doing great.
Good.
Thank you. Glad to have you on the show. This is our second interview with you. The first time you were Will, not Willow, as you are today, and very lovely and happily living your best life, I'm sure.
Absolutely, yes.
That is, that's all people could really ask for. I mean, we walk around life trying to be something we're not, and we get called delusional, not living in reality, get said that we have mental illnesses because we are going within and living our spiritual self. Because most people just believe that these suits that we wear is everything. And it's actually quite nice to have these suits, but it's not everything. There's a lot more involved in life than these physical bodies. And we're going to get really into that. You've had a massive spiritual awakening, which we want to touch base on.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, transcending our physicality is, I think, one of the biggest reasons that I even transitioned was because I wanted to find out the truth. I wanted to know what, what authentic love was about. I wanted to find out who I was as a person. And I knew that the best way for me to experience that was to transition.
Definitely.
Mm.
So it's been a while since we had you on the show, but let's refresh a little bit of who was Willow growing up and what were your influences?
Let's see. Willow growing up. Gosh, that is because well, part of my recent challenge is trying to put together some of my memories from childhood because there's actually been quite a few of them that I've disappeared from my mind. Like, I have little flashes here and there, and I realized like a while ago that actually a lot of the reason why I don't remember my childhood is because of trauma, because of childhood trauma. And I found that like, the more trauma you experience, the more like the more likely you are to forget about your childhood. But I do remember like my early childhood was, pretty fun. I had, my little sandbox where I could build my own little worlds. I had I don't even know what like brought this on, but I actually had dreams of becoming an author, of becoming, some type of writer of some sort. I wanted to write stories, and everybody around me told me I was very good at it, and then that expanded beyond my hometown, so that's how I was assured that I was good at it. But
Right.
um,
It was beyond your mom telling you were good,
Yeah,
right? Right.
right.
exactly. but yeah, no, rem- I I just remember like looking back, I would also have these flashes of doing things that I guess were seen as girly, but I just saw it as me being a kid and just doing my own thing. Like I would actually put together like cute little like bows made out of ribbons and whatnot, and like the way I would hold dolls, I would just instinctually hold them like as if they were my children, like as if I was the mother to them, like that sort of a deal. And it wasn't until I was like forced to go back into public school around the sixth grade that I really started getting criticized for some of my behaviors that I didn't even think twice about before. In fact, that's how I discovered the F slur. The F blank blank GGOT, that one. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, because I had like boys calling me that like every 5 minutes, and yeah, I'd say things took a pretty radical nosedive from there. And it's yeah, I honestly feel like everything just took like a pause. Like my mental psychological development took a pause because I just felt like I didn't even feel like anything at that point. I just felt like I was spiritually flatlined. And then, well, I knew I was attracted to men at a fairly young age, but like, I was definitely afraid of like how that was going to come off. Like I already been to church. I've already had preachers that were saying things like, "You call it homosexuality? Well, I call it vile affection." Things like that.
Right.
And 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 then it was about age 20, I felt like if I didn't try to do something, that life was just not going to be worth living at all. Because, like, I could not force myself to go in this direction of, you know, this mold of being a male that was going to have a wife and a nuclear family. Like, that was just not working out. So it's like, okay, so I'm gonna start recognizing some truths about myself. So I did that, but then I also, um, I came out with my attraction to men, but I also like put kind of like a coating of hypermasculinity over it. And then in hindsight, that's because I was just still that uncomfortable with myself. In fact, one of the few times that somebody, proposed that I do drag, I was like repulsed by the idea. I was like, there's no way in hell you're going to get me to do that. And then just give it about 3 years and I was going to do it. And then I was going to love how I looked in it. And then I was going to be afraid of it and then pretend that I never did it. So,
I would say, that in the last interview we had with you, you mentioned the type of Christianity that you grew up under. You mentioned something about Bob Jones University and the
yep.
extreme, spiritual. I mean, because Bob Jones is, that place is like, they don't mess around when it comes to like being
No,
ultra
ma'am.
orthodox. You know what I mean? So,
One
They
of the
do
things
not.
that I've noticed, and right now Christians are in an uproar along with a lot of conservatives. They don't realize that this kind of gender explosion that has taken place is pretty much theirs to blame, because
Mhm.
people have not been allowed to be themselves, are being forced to put on, like you were saying, I don't know if we said it before we went on camera, putting on a
Mm.
show for
Yep.
the world, and they think that we're putting on a show when we transition. It's the other way around. We had to live a lie for many, many years trying to maintain this secret identity so that we could blend in society. And they don't realize that this whole stereotypical girls dress this way, boys do this, is what's created this explosion. So people want to blame everyone, but they should be pointing the fingers at themselves. I call it bad parenting, and I call it this religious craziness that has made people rebel. What do you
and
think?
I honestly
Mhm.
also think that, we just had a conversation with a person on Twitter, a Christian, who basically said, now, which one of you are a TRAANNY? Which one are you? Is it the it's
Yeah.
like, and so they're like trying to like demonize us and, trying to like mock us and everything. And they don't realize when you said, you're the reason that people have done what they've done because they have nowhere else to go.
How many
You know,
Mhm.
people that are part of the LGBTQ have
came
been
out of
raised in a Christian household?
yeah.
Very large
Oh,
percentage.
yes, absolutely.
So yeah, there's a lot
Huge.
to unpack there. What do you think?
Mm. Well, let's see. Well, the one thing I wanted to touch on was what Mark was saying is, the major religious movement, like the way that our culture is, it does not allow people to express their authentic selves, to explore who their true selves actually are without any type of excessive scrutiny happening.
Exactly.
Every single person has divine masculine and divine feminine energy. Every single
Yes.
person ever has those two. And what's
Hmm.
happening is that people who are assumed to be men are having their femininity, are having their feminine energy, like denied from them. And then, exact same way with people who are assumed to be women. Like, they're not allowed to touch their divine masculine.
Yeah,
Hmm.
And
because they have to be a certain way. Yeah.
yep, absolutely. And yeah, and well, actually, I'll let one of you guys talk. I had like a whole train of thought, and then all of a sudden my
Oh no,
brain was
that's
just like,
okay. Yeah, we had so many
Yeah.
things that we were touching on.
So, one of the things they don't really understand, I mean, society who, this has been happening over and over again, and because I believe everything happens in cycle, very few really dig deep. There's nothing new under the sun. We were burned at the stake many moons ago, and people went against
hmm
the religion of the state, which Constantine created. Because we really dive deep into this whole Christian faith, it's based on nothing but fairy tales, and there's a lot of proof that there was no real true historical Jesus, and it's been um, like they've been
They've
copying,
repurposed,
repurposing other religions and
pagan
other pagan
religions.
religions. And so right now we're
hmm
like living in a time where it's like they're just getting ready to want to burn us all at the stake,
Yeah.
like they did back in the day.
Oh
So
yeah, it's like the Crusades all over again, or at least they're trying to get it to be that way.
Yeah.
yes,
Penny says, "Hi there, hey there. Excessive scrutiny. Good description, Willow.
yeah,
Just way too much. Yeah, over
hmm
the top.
totally. You know,
Exactly.
what people fail to really understand and see is that we've been around forever. People of
hmm
trans spirit, two-spirited, whatever we want to call ourselves, people that don't just live based on the black and white scenarios that the system, religion wants us to live. We've been around forever, and we are very gifted in the spiritual realm, and they fear us. Kid yourself not. We're feared. We're mocked
Mhm.
and made fun of, but deep down inside, there's this massive fear.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
And some of
Yeah.
us actually, we do this, and this may sound kooky to someone who doesn't believe in um, the esoteric and the possibilities that we have in the quantum and existence and everything. But many of us do this because we were up for a challenge in this life in order to feel something different, maybe from a past lifetime um, that we were like you and I, we were actual biological women, or
Hmm.
that he was actually a biological man in the past. And we chose to experience this life for a certain reason, and that we have a preference as to how we want to express ourselves in the eternal essence of who we are. Like you and I may prefer a feminine type of person, when we do come into the
Exactly.
physicality. And this person may want to be more of a masculine, So people
Exactly.
just don't understand the whole story, they really don't.
What are your thoughts on that?
I know it's funny that you bring up the past lives thing because during a psilocybin trip, um,
Oh, yes.
oh yes, I actually got to see glimpses of my past life. I won't go into too many details, but I specifically remember where I was, like what time period it was. It was the early 1800s, and I had just
Yeah.
given birth to my son.
Wow.
And yeah, and I saw, his father there, and it was beautiful and it was amazing. And yeah, I specifically remember being a biological woman in a past life. So actually, yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually awesome that you brought
So,
that up.
Yeah, and people don't understand that because they're
yeah.
so black and white, and they claim to
Mhm.
be spiritual, but they don't know what spiritual is. They're just following dogma. They're trying to put everyone in a little neat little box. Women are supposed to dress and act this way. Men are supposed to act and do this. Be fruitful and multiply. Like that's all we're worth for, just to have babies. Not that is the entire uh,
Essence of,
essence of that
yeah.
whole belief cult system, and it's crazy.
Mhm.
Let's see what Penny had to say here for real.
Even the
I can't
atheist
even read anymore.
prankster Jay Lindsay has been sucked into the Christian nationalism movement.
That's crazy. And then she also says, why not? Choice would be free will to reincarnate for reasons that are hidden. Exactly. This is a classroom.
Yes.
We have to understand that this is not just about building your bank account, having a bunch of kids, working yourself, retire at 65 and get ready to die. There's a lot more to life than what meets the eye. And this is a
Mhm.
massive classroom. And we come here to work through our karma, to build our spirit, because this is just one level. And most people don't realize that.
Oh,
Third dimension,
absolutely.
very, very low
Yeah,
in
very
dimension.
limited
Yeah.
frequency wise. I
Mhm.
mean, even in the physicality, we can only see, smell, taste, certain things, right? We can't even see what a cat can see. You know what I mean? We can't see what a bird can see. We don't have like this sense that animals have before some natural disaster happens to react before it happens. I mean, we've been so shut down as a human species,
Sounds like
where
there's
we
an
had
echo.
so much more potential.
Do you hear that echo, Willow?
Yeah, it's
Let's
just
see.
probably just from being in the car.
Oh, okay.
It's okay.
Yeah,
So
that's what I'm thinking.
what do you what else happened during that experience with plant medicine, which I believe that everyone should have that experience because it allows you to see beyond the veil.
Mhm.
Until you have a plant experience, you really don't know what life is about. You're just
Oh, absolutely.
scratching the surface. So If you could get a little deeper into that for us, we'd appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Well, let's see, I'll just go ahead and tell you all the really wacky stories. So about late July, I was having a shrooms trip. It wasn't really even supposed to be that much of a shrooms trip. I just needed to calm down my nerves because it was going to be the first time I saw my mom after transitioning, and so I just figured, I'll just, take a couple of fungi, and just trip. And then I was laying down on my bed and I was playing Black Sabbath Volume 4. And there was one moment where I looked over at this vision board that I did. And the vision board, the purpose for that was to help me draw, a man who was, who would be my equal, like romantic, etc. And at the time of making the vision board, I didn't even realize that I did this, but I laid the pictures out in the form of angel's wings. And I didn't realize that until the shroom trip, and I was just like, oh, shoot, these are angel's wings. And then I just kept looking at the vision board, and I just kept looking, and then I started feeling things. And I don't know how NSFW I can get on here, but the things I were feeling were very intimate, I'll say.
Okay.
They were very hot and heavy. And let's see. The man was not physically in the room, but he was very much in the room. There was this very tall, built man, and like I could see him, I could feel him, I was interacting with him, and it was an amazing experience.
Wow.
And one of the things he told me was that I need to pack up and move to Grand Rapids.
What?
Which is why I'm here now. And and I was telling my roommate at the time, like, all this different stuff that was happening. Of course, they thought that I was, fat poop insane. And then I was just like, oh yeah, you think I'm full of it? Well, get in my room and see what it smells like. Forget how graphic that is, but see what it smells like. And then my roommate goes in the room, she smells it, she's like, yeah, that's a sex smell. All right, yeah. And she was sober, so.
Yeah, so she wasn't part of the experience.
Nope. She was just, numbing her mind with YouTube videos, so yeah.
So Penny says beautiful vision. And she's mentioning a YouTube channel called Gnostic Informant. There's a lot of great channels out there that really give a lot of information that people would not be privy to, because if they just stick to the news and their Bible, they're going to have a very limited
and I think that's what
view.
that's what the medical industry did back, around the turn of last century and stuff, where they pretty much demonized any kind of natural medicine, any kind of natural herb, or any kind of natural healing agent, any kind of mushroom or anything like that. And I think that was a huge part of human society for a very long time. And even like when they say things in the Bible, there's like coded reference to mushrooms, and it wasn't just wine that they drank, it was like a combination, and they were in touch with like a spiritual dimension that we in the Western world don't even have any clue, unless, like you said, you've been on a psilocybin trip, or you've been on an ayahuasca trip or something like that, where it opens up everything, right?
Well, it allows you to leave this dimension and clearly see. The veil's removed from your eyes, and things are no longer black and white, as many people that live on this planet think things are, tremendously so.
Exactly. So, and if you I'm sorry. And if you notice, they're all but flat out trying to calcify our third eyes. They have all the well, now I forget the fluoride. Yep. Mm-hmm. They have fluoride in the drinking water. They have it in our toothpaste. They have it in absolutely everything. I had to, let's see. again, try not to get too graphic here, but let's just say, I used to cleanse a certain part of myself fairly often,
Hmm.
and I had to start doing that. I had to start changing the way I did that because there's fluoride in that water, and I'm flushing myself with fluoride. And
Right.
yeah, it's everywhere, and I'm very thankful for magic mushrooms for taking that out of me. In fact, it was another one of my trips where I realized that everybody and everything that exists right now, we're all God. We are all the universe experiencing itself.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. And they don't want you to know that because they want to control you. And that's what they've been doing from the beginning of time, burning information that the pagans had that went from generation to generation,
Right.
and they wanted to be the controllers. People don't
Exactly.
realize that, the God of the Bible that they so much praise is actually an interdimensional beings. It's not just one, they're Elohims. There's like it's like how do you call it?
Sky
A
Council
sky council.
of like, yeah.
Yeah, and most people aren't aware of this stuff, and it's right in their Bible. They just pretend they're not reading it, or they like try to
Exactly.
adjust it to what they want. But there's so much that people don't know, and we're just
Mhm.
programmed, and our third eye is being, like you said, calcified, and we're being dumbed down by the stuff that flies in the air that we think that is very natural, which is not. Our food supply is tainted. The
Mhm.
seeds are not even heirloom seeds anymore. Everything's GMO, But
Yeah,
one thing people need to know is that don't give them permission. We do not consent because no matter what they do to us, if you're tapped in to your higher self, there's nothing that they can do. There's no
that's exactly
disease. There's
right.
nothing that they could do. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
Nope,
on a
you're exactly.
cosmic level, on a cosmic galactic level, there are things that are happening in the universe that they can't stop. Like, with these different, what is it, the Kali Yugas and everything happening, that there's like things that they cannot control. They can't stop it from happening. So people are becoming more enlightened. People are awakening because of the patterns of just how the universe works. And we are getting more information now than we used to.
So tell us what
Hmm.
happened with the union of your mom. You said you were nervous to tell your mom that you were coming out as a trans woman that you are. How did that turn out, and what happened after that plant medicine ceremony you had, and take it from there?
Oh, let's see. Well, to put things into a better context, so my mom actually knew for a while that, I came out as trans and that I transitioned. And it was actually back in November 2020, I got the bilateral orchiectomy because what was happening was my hormone therapy and the testosterone in my body, it was having a roller coaster effect, like even after a couple years. And so I told my mom over the phone, I was like, hey, so I had this bilateral orchiectomy, and she had a very, nasty reaction to that. She, was very distraught. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna sever ties. If you're gonna continue behaving like this, like, I'm done. I'm done. And so, like, no talking during Thanksgiving, no talking during Christmas, and on February, I was just like, okay, so if we are going to talk again, this is why I cut this is why I severed ties in the first place. And I just explained myself for like probably a 5-page long text. And my mom, she was just happy to hear from me, and she said, she was sorry, and things, very slowly and gradually, got better. And then let's see, after the shrooms trip, after my little, bump in with the mystery man, the next day, mom and dad, they picked me up, we hung out for the weekend, and there were a few instances of like her, saying like he instead of she, but like, there were times where she, said she without prompting or anything, and Oh yeah, no, she's definitely come a long way from like whenever I first came out and from all the turmoil. Like, yeah, things are pretty good between the two of us right now.
We had a conversation. It was in June of 2016 when we interviewed you, and we both had in our heart, we were like, "Do you think? I think they're going to transition
Yeah, we kind
sometime.
of like had this feeling that I don't
They
know
just
why.
might. They just
Yeah,
might. It was just kind of a hunch, that you had,
yeah,
right? And we talked about it, but yeah, because you were like wrestling with things, and you were
Yes.
like struggling to make sense of it,
Oh yeah.
you know, and you were very um there was a lot of pain that you were going through, you know.
Yes.
And I sometimes people do well to transition, but it shouldn't be a way to escape from problems, but it should be a way to be able to, you know, find find resolution for what they're struggling with.
enhance.
Right.
And like when you wear an
Mhm.
accessory, enhance your life. It's not like we see nowadays is people think that transition is this magic pill and that they're going to be happy ever after. And those are usually the people that don't continue. They're not happy and they detransition because I thought the transition was going to be the key. Unlike individuals that know deep in your heart that this is just like an accessory, you're doing something to be kind to yourself, because I think we're not, that we hate ourselves,
Yeah.
that we're homophobic, that we hate ourselves for the other. What do you think? I mean, was
Mhm.
it, what would you tell somebody that says you're just a you know, what's the word? A, you're ashamed of yourself because you were ashamed growing up for being different, and so you're running away. What would you say to somebody who would say that to you?
Well, I would definitely say like I never really saw transition as a magic pill. In fact, I actually saw it as like a last resort. Like there were a lot of very strange internal conversations going on inside of me. Like they're like almost like verbal wrestling matches. And I just remember some of the things that were said. I would say things like, well, if I'm no matter what, I'm not going to transition because living my life as a gay man was hard enough, and if I live my life as a trans woman, it's going to be impossible. Like I was having conversations like that, and then when I realized what I was saying, I was just like, wait, why am I saying this? like transition for me was, for lack of a better way of putting it, was actually a last resort because I was scared shitless to do it. Like December 23rd, 2017, it was a very liberating, exciting day. It was also a day where I was frightened for my life because I just did not know what was going to happen. I didn't know if I was going to be able to defend myself from anybody who was going to act hostile. Like there was like millions of scenarios running through my mind, and I just said to myself, no matter, okay, well, we are just gonna have to figure it out along the way.
Exactly.
That's
Mhm.
a really good um, point that you're making with regards to being scared shitless, because I know what that was like too back in 2013 when I transitioned initially, and I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen with my career as a camera operator, working with Christian television. I mean, I knew that was over.
Oh wow.
My marriage was going to be over because I mean, there's no way I could, you know, possibly, and I was going to lose a lot, and I didn't know what was going to happen, but I was also excited on the sense of being able to feel free to express and be who I am, and that was like, well, if I can work on myself, it's going to be okay, you know. Um, we'll work through it, But yeah, we're
Oh.
scared, definitely scared. People talk about like, oh, the bathrooms and all that, but trans women are more freaked out when they first, transition about going into a bathroom like that than
Mhm.
you know anything else. So
What do you think about the villainization that people try to put out there, that people transition so they could voyeur in bathrooms and take a look at things, and all sorts of like crazy ideas that,
and I'm sure there are people that
but that they're not
do things,
trans.
but
Those are
they're
perverted people
yeah, they're perverted
that,
people
Mhm.
doing.
yeah, they're not trans. They're just, everybody's trying to put everybody in one umbrella, and it's like
Exactly.
trans people just want to transition, blend in, and live their lives. We're not groomers. We're
Mhm.
not out there recruiting recruits. Like, I don't know. They think that we
I
like.
mean, I'm not actively engaging in our Reddit, MTF, gender, whatever it is, and telling young people to transition. I mean, like you said, this should be a last resort.
Yeah.
Honestly, it really should.
Mhm.
It shouldn't be like, oh wait, I'm dealing with anxiety. I'm dealing with some PTSD. Maybe I should transition. No,
No.
maybe you shouldn't. You know,
Yeah.
maybe you shouldn't get a phalloplasty if you're OCD. I mean, no, probably not. Work on that first.
Or if
And if
you're or if you're
Mhm.
negative, stuff like that. There's
yeah,
like a lot of. I noticed that a lot of people
or
that,
I can't make it.
yeah,
You
that
know,
detransition, they already started off with a very negative slate, and they're looking for
Mhm.
this perfection. They're thinking it's going to be like magic dust and everything's going to be hunky dory. Well, those are the ones that don't make it through because they're fighting their own shadow all the time. They're never happy. Nothing's ever good enough, and now they want to blame
Exactly.
everybody else. What are your thoughts on
Mhm.
that? What are your thoughts on the what you were seeing today, where detransitioners are blaming the medical system? They're blaming everybody else that they were so vulnerable and then got sucked into this trans cult. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, let's see. Ultimately, nobody's a victim. Like, these detransitioners, they made the conscious choice to pursue this route. And, they I'm not with the whole like just putting blame on everybody around you except yourself, but I don't even believe in putting blame on yourself. I think that a lot of these detransitioners, they just wanted some improvement in their life and they thought that transitioning was it, and they were wrong. And like nobody's to blame for it. I mean, yeah, some of them have, received some permanent damage. Some of them may not be able to reproduce children anymore, but for whatever reason, that is part of your life journey. And that's all I can say about it. That's all I believe needs to be said, that that's just part of your journey and it's for you to figure it out. And yeah, and nobody needs to be blamed, nobody needs to be crucified. Like, yeah, it's like ultimately you made the decisions you made and now you just need to go from here.
It's a famous saying that Peter, what's his last
yeah,
name?
Peter Crown says, what
It,
happened happened. It couldn't have
Mm,
happened any other way.
because
Why?
because it didn't.
Yeah,
exactly.
it
Didn't.
had to take place,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and going back to regret the loss of a body part or something, it's not going to change anything. And a lot of times these detransitioners talk about it as they're being victimized, but in reality, they were so like hell bent on doing whatever they wanted to do
Mhm.
that if Jesus Christ were to come down and appear in their room, they wouldn't,
They wouldn't listen to him.
they
They
wouldn't
still do
listen
it.
to him if they were a Christian,
Yeah.
or Buddha or
Because
whoever.
I know that when I wanted to transition, they could have put whatever in front of me. Nothing was going to stop me.
No,
Not a
it's
thing. So, I could understand knowing that transitioning wasn't the best thing for you as a person, and that's okay. We all make mistakes, but living in that angst and that regret and then blaming everybody else, that's only going to cause problems. Chuck it up for experience. Is something that you learned. You're better off for it now, because even with every pain, and I'm sure you would agree with me. Every situation that you've had to go through since your transition has been a marvelous experience. You've learned something from it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Like I've learned a lot about myself from every experience I've had, every good, bad, in the middle experience. Like I've actually learned that I'm actually a lot stronger than what I thought I was.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's been a tremendous learning experience. And despite how insane, some of the lower moments got, like if you were asked me right now, would I change anything that's happened? I would say absolutely not, because I feel quite accomplished as a person, as a spirit inside of a human body, in everything that I've learned in this lifetime alone. So,
It's a journey, and most people don't realize that. I think they don't realize that life has a purpose. From the moment you're born to the moment you're dying, there's reasons and things that happen. Things don't just happen out of coincidence. Sometimes
exactly.
there are heavy lessons that we have to learn, and things can be very painful, like getting a disease, losing a loved one, getting into a car wreck, whatever it is. Anything that ever happens to us is there not as punishment, but is there for us. It doesn't happen to us, but happens
Exactly.
for us, so we could grow.
Exactly.
Because everything, every single thing is a lesson.
Hmm.
Everything. I mean, there's not one thing that ever happens to us that's not something for us to learn.
Exactly.
So I was going to ask you, you were a part of the gay community for like a decade or so or more, right?
Hmm.
Okay. There's a big like um, they always kind of categorize transitioning men as either AGP or HSTS, right? They're too girly, they can't live, without being able to transition, because male society won't accept them, and even the gay community, right? So, and then the others, they transition because they love looking like women or have some stereotype that they want to. So, my question that I wanted to ask you was, what do you feel about those gay men who are highly ultra feminine, who choose to transition because it gives them access to more males? And it's not really because they are dysphoric in any way. It's not because they are, feeling anything with regards to their gender, but it's really to be able to get more D, right? Um,
Hmm.
for lack of a better word.
No, and it's incredibly disappointing to me, the idea of anybody transitioning for, any reason other than I am a trans person. Like if these highly feminine gay men are transitioning to being women just so they could get, more sex,
Yeah.
like that that's kind of tragic, because you're not being your authentic self. You're just turning yourself into a human sex doll. That's all you're
Yeah.
doing.
Right.
And they're not being true
And
to themselves, really. I mean, because this is about being true to yourself.
hmm exactly. And they're just, it's like, do you really want to reduce yourself down to just, oh, hey, I get all this D and that's all that matters in life? No, no, it's not. Like, and that's just a consequence of, like, being in a society where they encourage us being stuck in our bottom three chakras: the root, the sacral, and the solar plexus.
That's pretty much it.
And hmm and like, and I'm not exactly a prude, but like it does kind of take me back, like how much our culture is saturated with the idea of sex, the idea of just reproducing and, like, creating babies to put in the factories, like
Yeah,
that.
they're
And
following,
like there's a lot more to life, but no, they just want us eating and sexing. That's all they want.
they're following their God Yahweh's protocol. what that interdimensional being wants from humanity, and not
Mhm.
going within their own spiritual powers, their own spiritual essence, and understanding that there's more to life than just engaging in all the materialistic stuff. And those of us that transition, because it's a spiritual thing, it's not about the bodily comforts. It's about really feeling that you are navigating through their spirit essence the way we want.
Exactly.
You know?
I
Mhm.
mean, we did an interview with a detransitioner in early, I think it was in June of 2015. This is like before people were even talking about this stuff. Um, and his name was Third Way Trans, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and he was talking about how it was so difficult for him to navigate as a woman because his body was doing things that were opposite of what it was like he was fighting himself in a dance class, for instance. Just was like, confused as to how to how to perform feminine or how to perform woman or something. And it's like this is what's happened with a lot of detransitioning, men, is that they want to say, I couldn't play the game anymore. I was tired of playing the role of woman. Why do I have these boobs and stuff if, they don't feel genuine to me anymore? I mean, it's like, I, for me, I just can't hear that in my head because it just doesn't make sense to me. I don't play the role. I just am a person, you know.
Exactly.
And
Same here.
you know, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, it's never really been a role to me either. It's just, I go out and I am just myself. I mean, sure, there was a brief moment in time, like the first several months of like so transitioning socially, where like I was a bit hyper feminine, but that was really to like, battle against all this like, deeply ingrained programming that, all that femininity was bad. And so my response was like, okay, I'm coming out, I'm transitioning. So now I'm going to hyper femit the F up and I'm going to do all the fem things. And yeah, and I was like that for several months. But then, after I got used to that, I was just like, okay, now we can balance out. We can, find our true energy balance here. And
Mhm.
yeah, that's how it went for me.
Well, that's
Yeah.
very natural to go. It's like being a teenager and you're trying to figure out who you are and how you should be
Hmm.
because you're still learning yourself and you've been suppressing yourself for so many years. And that's what people don't understand. There's a massive suppression. Somebody just learned
Yeah.
about you being trans, but you've been fighting that and dealing with those feelings for a very long time. So people have to understand that, it's a very complex experience that many of us go through.
Yeah, and women are teaching their daughters. Willow, you and I didn't get that class. We never got that nurturing from our mothers or anything like that. So we're
Exactly.
doing it on our own. We're learning on our own, and we're trying to make sense of it on our own. And I think that this is part of what our contractual obligation was in signing up for this, coming back to this planet to do this. This was part of the plan, is to, like, okay, be a real person, try to experience life in a way that may find yourself uncomfortable, but you want to find where your balance is, where your center is. So you went ultra highly feminine for a while, and then you found that center of you, and that's beautiful. you know that
Hmm.
shows growth. Yeah, that shows
Oh,
growth.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
what moments come to mind when you initially transition and you're like, "I'm doing this"? What What were some highlight moments that come to mind that you would like to share with us?
Oh, like highlight moments during my transition?
Yes.
Let's see. Well, the first one that sticks out in my mind is like I think it was like about like this was just the first month after I went on hormone therapy. And I wasn't exactly wearing bras yet, because the girls weren't all that big yet. But the one day I was getting off the bus and walking down the street, and apparently they were big enough to bounce around all over the place, and I just felt this bouncing that I never felt before. And I was just looking down, and I was seeing all this swaying happening inside my shirt, and I was just like, oh.
How did that happen?
It's like, oh, Miss Willow needs to go bra shopping. Okay, I'll be right back. And this highlight isn't nearly as fun or lighthearted, but you brought up bathroom controversy a while ago. So I was actually working at a supermarket. It's a chain of supermarkets. I don't know legally what I can and cannot say, so I'm just gonna just say supermarket. But anyway, I was working at one of these supermarkets, and the specific one I was at, they brought me in one day and they tried to tell me that a mother and her male child, they saw me coming out of the women's room at one point, and the male child was so scared of me that he wet himself. The story automatically screamed of BS to me because, one, I would have remembered something like that, if it did happen. And two, like the vibe of it, like there's just something off about the energy of the story in general. It just sounded like something that they came up with so that they, foolproof. Hey, the tranny scared the child, so we can't, we gotta get her out of here. But yeah, they told me, yeah, because of that, you're no longer allowed to use the public women's room. If you want to use the restroom, use the employee one in the back of the store. And I was working at the front of the store. I was a cashier there. And I was highly convinced this was an act of discrimination because reasons. But sarcasm aside, like this was in Ann Arbor, and there is a specific city ordinance that is against this type of action. So they were just straight up breaking the law. And on top of that, like, yeah, and I would tell people that this was happening. Friends at the time that were from this town, they were just like, "Wow, really? In this liberal bastion of Ann Arbor?" I'm just like, "Yes, in this liberal bastion of Ann Arbor." Like, and it can happen anywhere. I think there was like a few years ago there was an attack on this one trans woman named Eden the Doll and like two of her friends on West Hollywood. So yeah, so I don't care like how conservative or liberal an area is. Like if somebody wants to be an a-hole, they will be an a-hole. And oh, it was great though because I actually got together a secret Facebook group, and how that works is that you do not know that the group exists. You cannot even type up the exact name of the group and have it pop up in searches unless you are a member of that group. So I was able to get about 300 people to be a part of this group, and I just told them, all right, so here's the address to the supermarket, here's their headquarters in, such and such. Here's a list of all the products that this company owns. Y'all have fun. and for about a week, the store itself was like flooded with angry phone calls, and and like the headquarters of this organization, they too like got an earful from people. And it was like after about a week, finally the store manager came back from vacation. He was on vacation during the entire time of this happening. And he comes back from vacation, and next thing you know, hey, Miss Willow's allowed to use whatever restroom she wants to now. Hey, guess what? Nobody's allowed to be a jackhole anymore about this situation. So yeah.
People take the stance that, we've as a community have demanded all sorts of stuff, and people are angry because they believe our demands are unreasonable, but they don't realize that it started with their prejudice, with them doing the things like they did to you, people lying about their children, and because they always use children for shields, it's always the children are the shield. They're doing everything for the children. Code word, we're being discriminated against you, and we don't like you, so we're going to bring you down no matter what we have to do and no matter how many lies we have to say. And that usually is what
Weaponizing
happens.
children.
Yeah.
Weaponizing children, as I said before. That's what they do. Like, I heard that a lot in the first year of my transition. Well, what about the children? And it's almost enough to make you say, like, almost enough to make you quote George Carlin and say, "Fuck the children." But
And that would be a meme for a lot of people to take a hold of and use it,
Yeah.
mm-hmm,
Well,
because that's what they do. And it doesn't matter if it's a gender critical feminist or something, or if it's a frustrated detransitioner. They'll use it. They'll use whatever words you say, and they'll paint a whole other plot line in order to invalidate you as a person and everything that you stand for.
well,
exactly.
that's how they act. They're dirty. They hit below the belt. They're not truthful. They're so worried about the children. Well, they should take care of their children. And a lot of these individuals do not. I mean, kids are a reflection of their parents. Kids misbehave for a reason. If you're not keeping a good home, then obviously your kids are going to get into all sorts of things. They don't need to blame the groomers. They don't need to blame the school system. They don't need to blame anybody but themselves. Because if they would have had a good relationship with their child, they would know their child from the inside out. They would know that
Exactly.
something's up with their child. But they're so busy
Exactly.
ignoring their children so they can keep up with the Joneses, that they don't see what's actually taking place. But now they're blaming everybody.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
it's yeah. Go ahead.
oh no, you're good. But yeah, no, like there are very few like real connections between, well, I mean between like people anymore, but like especially toward like, a parent and a child. It's well, I don't know, like I do see like some parents like, making, a genuine effort to like, connect with their child and get to know them and like, help them develop into the type of person that they're meant to be. But there is still a lot of just like, it's about, people doing things for social status.
Mhm.
Like, it's getting married, having the children, having the house is less about what actually makes you happy, more about like, the image of being happy, the image of doing what's expected of you.
They're worried about their image, how their kids are going to make them look, because
Mm-hmm.
like they don't want to, like, oh, I didn't give birth to that, that kind of thing. So instead of being like the many loving parents who try to understand their children, and their children says, I'm having issue with my gender, and as a good parent, you're going to listen. You're going, maybe you don't want to do everything your child says, because after all, they're still not fully developed, but you're going to be a little open, a little understanding. You're going to have a good rapport with your child and good communication, so that things take its place the right way, but they just want to point fingers at people. They want to villainize everybody, and they don't understand. They don't want to understand this. That's the problem. They really don't.
Yeah, I mean, we interacted with a lot of people throughout the history of this show, and we've had everybody, every flavor that you could imagine on our show. And I remember that there was one interview that we did where we were talking to the mother of an ROGD kid, and she is adamant about that child not having access to talking about it, to being able to share anything having to do with it. And Mark got into some deep discussion with her about, do you think that maybe there's a deeper thing that's going on, that maybe that you're not giving your child? And, when people feel challenged like that, they like to paint a scapegoat instead of dealing with the actual problem, which in her case was something that was quite obvious, that she was like being like, what was it? She was like being very,
Overly
yeah,
protective, and
overly
not
protective.
allowing her child to have any autonomy, which I see a lot with mothers and their daughters. the mother wants to create a mini version of them and their daughter, and their daughter could be tomboyish and not really want to wear all the feminine stuff. So, you see a lot of that friction going on, and then the mother wants to insert her will on the daughter, and that's when you have problems, and then you have the child rebelling, and then the mother ain't going to have any part of it. And so we're seeing a lot of that. A lot of the mothers, over my dead body, you're going to transition instead of trying to understand what their child's going through, and it's not about her, the mother, that it's about the child. Listen to your children.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to tell you something.
Yeah.
They may not fully transition, they may not be trans, but they're going through something. We all went through something during our teenage years. Right now we're having a gender explosion that's taking place, and I think it's very spiritual what's happening.
Oh, absolutely. No, I completely agree. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's like this lack of personal responsibility that I feel that, even these mothers and stuff who would say, oh, not my child, not over my dead body. They're going to thank me later, for rescuing them from this malaise of gender confusion. And, they're going to wish that they're going to be grateful to me. And it's like, no, they don't realize that sometimes what they're doing is going to drive a stake in their relationship for the rest of their life. I mean, it's going to drive them away. And I mean, I know for my own personal experience is that my mom not accepting me just as a person, right? Not wanting to have anything to do with me as a human being, that has really driven a stake in our relationship. We can't really communicate because there's nothing I could talk about with her, because we don't see any common ground, and as much as one would want that to take place, it doesn't take place. But, that's where you have to understand that it's this personal responsibility that each person has to take, it's everyone's journey.
So talk to us a little bit about your spiritual path now compared to your upbringing. You were raised pretty Christian. So for somebody who's not aware of what spirituality is, and they just think spirituality is religion, which is not, what's the difference on the way that you were raised to the way that you now lead your life and your spiritual beliefs?
Well, I'd say the biggest difference is that when I was raised to believe that God is some outside being, that we should always give gratitude and whatever to this outside being. And, we are the sinners and we have a price to pay from something that, an ancient ancestor did. And it was a very limiting experience to be a Christian. And what I mean by that is it's very limiting because you just feel like you're stuck on this physical plane, and that you just gotta keep, bowing down, begging for forgiveness of whatever the latest sin was that you did. And now it's like, oh, that's right. God is not outside of us. God is within us. Like, we are God. Like, we are just the many different avatars of God, experiencing, God experiencing God, for lack of a better way of putting it. And, there's going to be some Christians not too happy about this, but there's really just no such thing as sin. I mean, there's just things that you do that are of, a higher vibration, things that you do that are of a lower vibration, but every single thing is of God because God put it into existence. I mean, let's see, God and the devil, that's like yin and yang, that's, everything is a divine balance. The light and the
That's
dark.
how it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it is on this dimension,
Mm-hmm.
And all sin is missing the mark. Is not something so bad, because good and evil or right and wrong, it's only the thinking that makes it so. You know, it's how you think about it. And depending on what part of the world you're living in, there's certain practices that are considered bad in other parts of the world that's not. So it's basically thinking. There's no good and evil. Things just are, and there are to teach us, to help us grow.
I mean, you
Exactly.
see these stories like the story of the sheep and the goats. I mean, when you really were to break it down and look at what is being taught in that, is that just because you didn't visit someone in a jail, just because you didn't give somebody your clothes or something if they needed it, that you were going to be eternally punished, and that beyond, I mean, it just, these concepts are just so like uh authoritarian. It's like you talk about the God of the Old Testament, you see the story of Job and stuff, and you see how, this guy is meeting with another guy, and they're talking about the life of a human, and they're like using it like it's if he's a puppet to be dropped and just thrown around and kicked around. Oh, just don't kill him. Do whatever you want with him, but yeah, we have this wager. Let's see how it plays out. It's like that's not God. That's that's some authoritarian concept, of what man has called God. Because like you said, we are source. We are a fractal of that which is already and never was separated. I mean, we're not separated now, in the ultimate sense of us.
Exactly.
Things that people don't understand, and they
Yeah.
just want to create
They'll think we're
the
crazy for saying
simpleton.
it.
No, I mean, but they believe in a Bible that contradicts itself completely. There's like two creations in Genesis. Uh, Historical evidence of the flooding and all that things doesn't match. It's a very relatively new religion. They're the new kids on the block, yet they've come along and try to be the bullies for everyone,
Mm.
and it's like, no, I'm sorry.
And there's even parts in their own Bible, even the version that they currently accept. There's parts in the Bible that they actively deny or they give some alternative explanation to, like when when Jesus was on this planet, he was teaching people how to, to manipulate energy to manifest their own realities. Whenever he told his one disciple to walk on water, that was the disciple himself walking on water. I've heard alternate interpretations that Jesus was giving him the power, something, just some stupid thing. But no, Jesus was trying to teach people how to how to manifest things into this reality and how to do things themselves, just like he was doing. But no, they try to make it so that Jesus is just another branch of this external God, and that you have to give your allegiance to him, that you have to have Jesus in your heart. Well, this thing that you refer to as Jesus is already in your heart. It's source.
Yeah.
And
It's
yeah,
a
and whenever
consciousness,
exactly.
it's a consciousness. It's your awareness of the life before you came down to this planet. It's
Mm-hmm.
the tapping into that unified field.
And there's been this concerted effort, and you can see it from the very beginning in how they twist Genesis story and everything, how the divine feminine is totally disrupted and destroyed. It's like, oh yeah, God's son. Oh yeah, but there's no heavenly mother. There's only a heavenly father. There's, oh, the woman ate the apple. It wasn't fruit anyway. It was just, some concept that some old church historian had mistranslated a word, and it came out as apple, or fruit or whatever. But there was never anything having to do with that. But it's like, it was the woman's fault. It was, don't trust women. They're evil. It's like everything has been the demonization of the witch, of the wise one, the demonization of women in general as hysteria. I mean, it's like, it's crazy. But they know that by getting rid of the divine feminine in society, that they could keep everyone fighting, you know,
Yep.
because we're just working off of society's working off of one side, and there's that whole other side that is neglected.
And they're using our energy because we have a lot of energy and power to manifest things. When they show stuff on television and the news and they create all the scare tactics and fear, they're generating energy to create the things that will destroy us as a species because ultimately it's all part of population control. And there's a lot more deeper stuff than that. You know, interdimensionally, these beings really hate us so much that they want to destroy us. So, you wrote a book or several books that you're writing or wrote. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh yeah. So the first book I wrote, Death, Judgment, and the Tower, it was originally supposed to be three separate novellas, but then
Mhm.
I put them together because the first one by itself, the first story by itself, like kind of unintentionally gave like a lesson that I did not want to teach. That like I feel like if I would have released the first story by itself, it would have given the impression that revenge is good, and that is not at all what I'm about. So
Oh,
Oh no,
we lost her.
we lost.
Oh,
Oh,
she's back.
she's
There you
back.
are.
Okay,
sorry about that.
It's
But
okay.
but yeah,
Your
no.
volume.
Oh
it's
yeah.
good.
All right. But no, so I put all three of the stories together because really the whole book is about a spiritual ascension. It's about, finding, your divine, well, in this case, divine goddesshood. And it's to ultimately learn, how powerful forgiveness can be for the one who does the forgiving. Because one thing that I've learned is that forgiveness is not for other people. I know that, some people like view, like, I don't know, sometimes forgiveness can be demonized, but see, where they go wrong is that they think that, we're forcing ourselves to give other people like leniency or like, but no, it's for us so that we can finally let go of that pain. Because when we refuse to forgive others, we're holding on to that pain and we're just making ourselves sick. Like, you can forgive somebody without them being in the room. You could just forgive them purely on an energetic level. Like, you could just be all by yourself and forgive them. And, maybe energetically they'll feel it, but, they're not going to know. They're just like, oh, well, that felt odd. Well, I'll just go on my merry way. And then meanwhile, you've forgiven that person and you've let go of that pain. And that's one of the themes that Death, Judgment, and the Tower deals with. Because the lead protagonist, she goes through quite a bit. Let's see, she is a trans woman who is a witch, but she's been out of practice for a while. So, and she's in a relationship with a boyfriend who's very like emotionally and psychologically abusive, a major gaslighter. And the first part of the book involves him and two of his friends hunting down our lead protagonist so that they can hunt her down and kill her in her own home. And without getting too spoilerific, well, she survives the first third of the book. So, but that's not that much of a spoiler because she's in the other two parts. The other two parts, she ends up in prison. I'm not going to say how, but but yeah, she ends up in prison, and it's a men's prison that they force her to be in, and in a sense, like her being in a men's prison was kind of like my way of like representing like a person being stuck in their own personal prison, if that makes sense. I had a
Yeah,
better way of
yes.
I had a better way of wording that, and then all of a sudden it was just like bye, but
Well,
um
that's what most people don't realize. That transgender, transsexual people, we are living in our own prison for a very long time
Yeah.
till we
mm,
escape. And
mm-hmm,
our escape makes people very angry. People get very uncomfortable with us because they don't see it as normal. Because in their little one-track mind. Normal is a man and a woman. You leave yourself alone. If you're a woman, you dress like a woman. You're a man, you dress like a man. I mean, they're so like dinosaur age. They don't realize that we are evolving as a species.
Or there's like, especially in the Christian community, there's like this pent up like sense of doing the right thing, but they feel like they're muzzled dogs in a cage that haven't been able to be themselves. So when they see someone who defies the muzzle and they get out of the cage, they get upset. You know, they get mad because whether it's a sibling that you had that you no longer have a great relationship because they don't want to have anything to do with you because maybe they were struggling with same-sex attraction themselves, and then they decided that they were going to follow the rules of their religious indoctrination and live pitiful lives in the process because they're not happy. You know, they're married to someone that they don't love, or they're living a life that they didn't want, you know. And I think that concept that you were talking about with regards to forgiveness, the way that we could tell that the lesson that is being taught in the Bible is an incorrect one is because the focus that Jesus gives is not forgive others because it's going to benefit you, but it's about, well, if you don't forgive, then the Father won't forgive you. You know, it's like this attitude of like, do it or else, right? Do it or else your punishment is that this big sky daddy's not going to forgive you because you didn't forgive someone for stealing your pencil, you know? And what you teach is different. It's like, it's good to forgive because it allows you to let go of the pain. That's way better than any lesson the Bible can teach me about forgive or else I won't be forgiven, right? Yeah.
Exactly, because now you have a deep understanding of why it's a good idea to forgive others, why it's a good idea to do this sort of thing or that sort of thing. Like, you know, now you're given a good reason to do it, like, you know, because it gives you liberation, because it benefits your spiritual growth, it benefits your spiritual health. And I also agree with like what you were saying earlier, because, you know, a lot of these transphobic people, like they do fear us, but they also envy us. You know, they envy us for being brave enough to take the muzzle off and, you know, give ourselves that freedom.
Totally. I mean, you see a lot of the, you know, gender critical feminists, a lot of them are lesbians. They wish they could transition. They'll never admit it. But deep down inside, they're like, hey, I would love that, but they won't do it. So they criticize instead.
Right.
You know, and it's very obvious what they're doing. They're just very envious of us and just can't wrap their heads around the fact that we are living our authentic life, and they're just projecting all their bitterness and all their anger and all that stuff at us. You know?
Yeah, and many detransitioners these days are taking the attitude that, you know, it's bad for everyone. They're out to just take it away from anyone, any child that is dealing with gender confusion or any identity issues at all. They want to strip them from being able to have access to things that they got access to. And the irony is that if they had things gone right in their lives with regards to their surgical procedures or whatever that they went through, then they wouldn't even have the platform that they wouldn't even be talking about it because they'd be living their life. You know, they wouldn't feel the need to complain, you know, because everything would have been great, right? I mean, SRS gone well, trans woman would never be complaining, right? I mean, it's just, or a detransitioner wouldn't be complaining, but they make it personal because they couldn't get what they wanted out of it, you know.
And then they
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, yeah, um, I do believe, and I really feel for these, detransitioners who actually are trans people who had certain things go wrong in the transition. Like, I do get that there is a small but significant percentage of the detransitioners that fall under that category, and that just sucks. Like,
Oh, we lost her again.
But it'll come back.
It'll come back. Yeah, there she is.
I'm just gonna keep occasionally disappearing, apparently.
It's all right.
It's part
Adds
of
to the drama.
your witchy powers, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yep. But
Abracadabra.
You just don't have control of your powers.
You're
yet.
still learning. You're a young
still
witch
working.
a young witch in action, learning
Yes.
her craft.
Yeah.
hmm but oh yeah, I was talking about the detransitioners who actually are trans people that just had certain things go wrong, like it I'm sorry that that happened to you. I'm sorry that the SRS healed itself back shut, but like don't try to force other trans people into a state of extreme dysphoria just because that happened to you.
Yeah, it's great for them to share their stories so that people realize transition is not for everyone. Buyers beware. This takes a lot out of you. But when you're trans, and it's all worth it in the end. You're not going to
hmm
blame things going wrong. And nothing's perfect. Nothing in this life is perfect. Nothing in medicine is perfect. But you do what you can to alleviate the dysphoria, and you try to live your life as best as you can. As tell us, I mean, you transition. How do you feel it's going for you? I mean, is this something that that things come out the way that you thought they would? Are you happy?
Let's see. I would say all in all, I am very happy with how things turn out with my transition. There are moments where like the dysphoria will hit and I'll think I need to do a lot more procedures than what I probably actually need to do. Like there was one brief moment like about a month and a half ago when I was working at this restaurant, and I don't know what it was exactly, just something about the energy. Like I went from people mostly, seeing me as a woman and gendering me correctly to after I started working at this restaurant, regardless of what I was doing, where I was going, people were now all of a sudden misgendering me and getting my gender wrong and like, sticking with their guns when I called them out on it. And like I went into, a bit of a state of like dysphoria where I was convinced I needed to get like all these 12 surgeries done all of a sudden. I mean, before that, and this is the exact same point that I'm at now, I feel like if I just get hair removal, I'll be fine. But, when I was at that peak dysphoria, I was like, oh, crud, I need to get vocal surgery. I need to get facial feminization surgery. I need to do all the things. But no, I say all in all though, like whenever I'm in a good place, whenever I'm surrounded by, you know, people who see me as me, and whenever I'm in a place of good energy, um, like transition has been great for me. Like I have no regrets about doing it.
One advice that I would always give, and I've been around trans women for many years. I've been on this rodeo since 2003. Is that the type of confidence that you put out there, how you present yourself, not worry about what other people think about you, because ultimately this is about you. It's not about any validation or how other people see you. People have their opinion. There's no two women that look alike. There are women that have facial hair because they have too much androgen coming out of their ovaries. There are women that are very squared and have a very androgynous face. So women come in all shapes and sizes. My advice to trans women is just be yourself. Worry about the inside, developing you as a person, healing from all the childhood traumas that you've been through and be able to go out on the street with confidence and knowing that you're living your best life. And that's the best advice. Doesn't matter what anybody else says.
I mean, there was an interesting interview that was done with Corey Ray. You know, she's like one of the early young transitioners and stuff, and she's living a really wonderful life. I guess she's coming out with a movie about her life next year. And one thing that I remember her saying was how she manifested things into existence, and that, you know, her essence of being, her femininity, her way of just interacting with her world, she manifested that. And I think that one of the things that when you transition as an MTF, it's hard, right? It is difficult, but the most important part of your transition is that internal switch that you need to engage in. Not so much the makeup, not so much the hair, not so much, you know, worrying about all these external things, because what happens is that it's like, you know, they say, like, you know, you could put all these topical things on your face, but if you don't drink enough water, your face won't glow like normal, like a beautiful natural glow. So it's like, it's what's inside that's manifesting that radiates out. And, you know, your essence expresses itself, and then you won't get misgendered many times, you know, because I mean, people, they see that aura of you, and that's so important. You know, it's more important than the clothes, more important than anything topical or external. Yeah.
No, you're exactly right. No, it is about manifesting that into existence. And yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because there have been times where there was like facial hair on my face like 2-3 centimeters long, and I still had men hitting on me.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like they were not seeing me as a dude. And yeah.
And there's like a magical mystery of people like us, because we literally embody both the masculine and the feminine. So whether you're an FTM, whether you're an MTF, it doesn't matter. You have that energy that allows you to transform yourself into whatever you wanted to make yourself into. And that's the thing that people don't like, is hearing about the fact that someone can actually change themselves. You know, they hate that concept because they're like, no, there's only two genders. This is how it works. And it's like, no, there is a limitless potential that we have in expressing who we are, you know, as
Exactly.
individuals.
Exactly.
Yeah, this black and white mentality that a lot of people have is definitely going to be disappearing soon, because we are heading for a massive change, a new age, a shift in the way we think, the way we feel, the way we act. Humanity is going to be in for a rude awakening, and those that are not ready to let go of the old and welcome in the new are going to be lost like the dinosaurs, basically. You know,
Sometimes I think that, you know, they talk about, the Christians talk about the rapture and, you know, leaving, you know, maybe what's going to happen is that we're going to ascend into a level, a dimension that's going to, you know, they're going to evaporate because they can't go there.
well, their frequency is so low, they're in such low density that the planet is going to vibrate in a different level, and those that don't have that same frequency will disappear.
Right.
Because heaven is going to be here on earth. We're not going to heaven. Heaven will be here on earth.
We can have heaven right
Exactly.
now.
Exactly.
You know?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly right. And yeah, I've also heard about things about, like, you know, Earth like separating into two different Earths. Like, I don't know if y'all have heard about this one, but like, you know, there's the 3D Earth. It's going to be splitting up into the 3D Earth and the 5D Earth.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's taking place. I mean, there's a lot of changes that are happening in our physical reality, and people are very confused at what's happening. The changes, the economy, the way people are treating one another. All this is part of the change. And so
Hmm.
that's why we have to work on our internal self. We have to meditate, really become aligned and in peace with who we are. And all these battles, because they want us to battle, because they want us to be down in lower vibrations. We can't be down
Yeah.
in that vibration. We have to always be at the higher vibration. Right?
Hmm. Exactly. There's got to be way less anger and way more empathy.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Anything else you would like to share with us or the audience tonight regarding your transition, your hopes and dreams for the future? What would you like to see your life unfold?
Let's see. I certainly hope for my books to be taking off on a much higher level. I know that my second book's coming out called Tristana. That'll be the second horror novel that I did, and I'm also working on a book about self-realization, self-discovery. And it's also a bit of a romance novel, this third one. And yeah, I'm just gonna keep up with the writing, and I'm gonna see where that takes me. I definitely do have a gift for writing, and I am really excited to share it with the world.
Keep manifesting it, because remember, you are the creator of your universe. And, just keep plugging it in, keep manifesting it, keep meditating. And you are the goddess, in your world. So nothing that, there's nothing you can't accomplish, put it that way.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And when we leave all those limitations behind, the potential is infinite.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, definitely.
Exactly.
Let's see if there's any more questions or comments from the chat. If not, so any advice for anyone that is thinking of transitioning?
Let's see. What piece of advice I would give? Gosh, I just want to find like a really good way to put this so that I'm not discouraging anyone and that I'm not encouraging anyone to do anything that may not be right for them, which is just very difficult to do. But I would just say, like, if it feels like your life is going to be a struggle without transition, if you have a difficult time seeing yourself growing up anymore as the sex that you were assigned at birth, then I'd say, start with the social transition first. Start with that for like maybe about a year. And then, like, if you're feeling really comfortable, then you can go into the medical route possibly, just take it one step at a time. There's no rush to do anything. If you're scared to do something, just wiggle into it softly. You don't have to, like, go full bore with anything. Like, this is your journey. Just relax into it and let whatever feels natural happen.
That's
It's
it.
good.
That's good advice. Definitely. No one's grooming anyone. No one's forcing
No.
anybody to do anything. This is not a path that's for everyone. And, all those individuals that are fighting against people like us, they have to understand we're here to stay. We ain't going anywhere. They have a loved one. They want to keep that loved one in their life. They better learn to love them unconditionally. Because no
Exactly.
matter what you do, they're not going to be able to stop them, from transitioning. It's just going to be a matter of time. So
Yeah, they'll find a way. They will always find a way.
definitely.
Hmm.
All right, we want to take this time to thank everyone that tuned in, and thank you, Penny, for all the question and interaction. Um, there's a lot of information in the description area where people could, I think, download your book or something. I just put everything down that you gave me. It's all in the
All your
description,
links.
all the links and stuff. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Yes.
We have another guest. Who do we have next week? I never know. Who's next week? I forgot. Well, check. It's in the
Yeah.
the upcoming show. Someone else is coming up. We're trying to introduce everyone that's having a happy life. It's either a transgender female or trans guy, or even we even have Easy. What's his last name?
Is he?
Izzy. He's a performer, and identifies as gay. We want to share your story of success and show the world that there are many happy members of the LGBTQ community. All right. Thank you guys for tuning
Absolutely.
in. We love you, but remember to always love yourselves too and each other. Bye bye.